Welcome to a special interviewer series commemorating 40 years of Lambda Scholarship Foundation Canada. In honor of this milestone, we're diving into the rich and complex history of an organization that has played a pivotal role in supporting the evolving needs of 2S LGBTQIA+ communities in Canada. Through candid conversations with some of the key individuals who helped shape the organization, this project aims to preserve and present the stories that define Lambda's legacy. These interviews offer space for reflection, celebration, and insight, offering a vivid portrait of the Foundation's evolution and its ongoing commitment to advancing equity in academic research, financial support, and education. For this interview, I sat down with Philip Robert. Philip was one of Lambda's very first board members, serving for about 5 years in the late 90s and early 90s. After more than 35 years working as a librarian, Philip has since retired, but his commitment to community hasn't slowed down. Over the years, he's volunteered with a number of organizations, including the AIDS Committee of Toronto, Pink Triangle Services, and of course, the Lambda Foundation. More recently, he's been actively involved in sponsoring and supporting LGBTQ refugees. All right. Hello, Philip. Thanks for speaking with us. I know that you were one of the organization's earliest board members. Can you tell us how you first got involved with Lambda?
Well, in the late 80s, I joined Lambda Ottawa, which was a professional and business networking group. We would have monthly meetings where there would be a speaker, such as a politician or someone from a profession talking to us, and then people having dinner and networking. And then when Lambda Ottawa decided to form the Lambda Foundation as kind of a charitable side to itself, the first chair, Gary Seeley, reached out to me to see if I was interested in joining the Lambda Foundation board, which I did.
Why do you think Gary asked you to join?
Well, I think from talking to him at meetings, he probably knew that I wasn't involved in a lot of volunteer work at that point, and that I was interested in the community and helping out in the community.
As you mentioned, at the beginning, it was more of a social group, and then it kind of turned into, what it is today, rewarding excellence, bestowing scholarships to academic research students working in LGBTQ studies. Can you speak a little bit about that shift? Why did that happen?
Well, at one point there was both. There was Lambda Ottawa still continuing with the networking opportunities, and then at the same time of Lambda Ottawa Foundation. I think with Lambda Ottawa, I think Lambda Ottawa had some difficulty getting newer attendees to the networking meetings. Perhaps people didn't see as much of a need as LGBT people were getting more kind of accepted in society. But the Lambda Foundation kept on going with its mandate.
So I know that in 1991, Lambda launched its first Wilde About Sappho event, which was a fundraiser showcasing LGBTQ writers. You, along with Gary Seeley, led this program for the first few years, from my understanding. How did the idea of creating a literary fundraiser for the organization come about?
Well, we were looking for some sort of fundraiser, and I had previously organized a reading with some friends featuring Jane Rule and Edward Phillips for Pink Triangle Services Library. I was on that committee. And it was a lot of fun. It was fun. It was an honor and fun to meet the authors, especially Jane Rule. And the people who attended, they really appreciated it and really thought it was fun. So that's why we thought, well, organizing another reading for Lambda Foundation would be good. Also, the mandate of a literary reading and the mandate of the Lambda Foundation it was a good match, because the Lambda Foundation wanted to build bridges of understanding between the LGBT community and society in general. It wanted to promote education about the community through recognizing and awarding excellence. And what better way of learning about a community and the various parts of that community than by reading books written by people from that community? As well, a lot of people at that time, there weren't a lot of positive portrayals of LGBT people in television or in movies. We didn't have the internet, so books were what people turned to find out about the community. When parents and family found out that their son or daughter or brother was gay, they often went to books to find out something about the community. And LGBT people themselves often went to books to just explore the community and learn about the community they were part of. So there was a good mix there.
Now, I know that you were a librarian for a number of years, and I believe John had mentioned too, I think you were part of a discussion group that would meet at after Stonewall Bookstore. Can you talk a bit about like the importance of literature in your life as a gay man?
Yeah, books have been very important to me just generally, but also as a gay person because, I come from a small, tiny town of 600 people in the prairies. And so, certainly in the 70s and 80s, there was no portrayal of gay people. When I went to university, there wasn't a gay group or anything. And so books were a way of exploring that. It might not be exactly the community I was part of, but it was kind of a way you could explore how other people were being gay, how you could be gay in the world. It was a starting point. And so even now, it's interesting to read books by gay authors, especially now, maybe ones whose experience is not my experience, just to learn about other parts of the community.
So the first Wilde About Sappho took place in November of 1991. What do you remember most vividly about the event? Do you remember it much?
Oh yeah,
The first one, yeah.
the first one, I think the thing I remember is really the reaction of the attendees. They were really enthusiastic about it. When for the first one, we sold tickets at the gay bookstore, the Ottawa Women's Bookstore, sold tickets for us, but we also just had the board members and friends of ours take 5 tickets and sell to their friends. And for many people coming to the reading, it was their first time going to a reading. We had to convince some people why you would go to an event where someone was just going to read from the book, because to them, reading was a solo activity you did at home. And so a lot of people who went to that first event were kind of surprised. They loved it. They understood the value of hearing the written word in the voice of the writer. And so, yeah, the reaction of the attendees was the one I remember the most.
It was, if I'm not mistaken, at the National Library as well, the first one?
Yep. It was at the National Library of Canada, and the National Library was really a partner in this. Randall Ware, who was responsible for public programming, was extremely helpful and was vital to the success of Wilde About Sappho.
What was it like to be part of such an important literary event in such an important space in the city? A lot of reading series happen in coffee shops and in bars, but like the National Library, that must have felt significant.
Yeah, it was great to know that Canada's National Library was hosting this event. Plus, we had Marion Dewar, who was the former mayor of Ottawa and an MP in the House of Commons, as the moderator. And so that felt good, having those kind of established institution or person helping us out and partnering with us.
So I'm curious, year to year, how were writers selected and what exactly was your role in the production of events?
Well, for the first 5 years, I had the pleasure of basically choosing the authors. I read, I was always reading gay and lesbian books. And so just keeping an ongoing list of kind of people that would be good and listening to friends like John Barton give recommendations. And then we just tried to put a group together that represented the community and that showed different parts of the community. So, we had Makeda Silvera, who was the publisher of Sister Vision Press in Toronto, a Jamaican Canadian writer. We had Beth Brandt, who was a Bay of Quinte Mohawk writer. And then we kind of looked at opportunities to try different genres. We had poetry, we had a mystery writer, and also opportunities to kind of connect with the community in other ways. Twice at Wilde About Sappho, we launched an issue of ARC, Canada's poetry magazine, one that featured Aaron Moray and another one that featured LGBT writing. And that was great. Once we had a group called Rural make some comments, and they were Radical United Rural Amazon Lesbians. And they were a collective from Arn Pryor who was editing a collection of writing by women who lived in the country, which is and it also depended on funding. The first couple of years, we didn't have a lot of external funding for reading fees and travel and stuff. So, we were looking at people local, which was great. And as we got more funding, we were able to also look from people out of town. So that was great.
So, you mentioned this, that, it played a unique role in, bringing people together, both the LGBT community and the literary community, bringing them together, drawing in audiences who would never go to a traditional book event. I know also that Lambda coordinated additional readings for visiting writers at local high schools and colleges. They were also creating connections outside of the reading for learning and for outreach. How do you think Wilde About Sappho shaped the cultural landscape of Ottawa at the time? How influential do you think it was, on the city?
Well, I certainly think, I know that in the gay community, people would be looking forward to it. It became an established part of the LGBT social scene of the year as it developed. I think it helped give voice to LGBT writers generally, yeah, and made it kind of more acceptable, perhaps, to help LGBT writers at readings, etc.
You mentioned some partners, but what partners did you have at the time? Was it difficult to get the support of the city, for instance?
No, I think once realized there's an opportunity here to get some support from the city and the region, I don't remember any difficulty. We had to go through the process like anyone else. And I think it started, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think it started off smaller and then grew. It was also great, like you say, we had partners. We tried when authors were coming from out of town to help them get other readings in town. So we would help them go to a local arts high school, or there was a college in Gatineau that the literature class would feature one of the authors. So that was great. Plus, we got partners in the community. The first year when we had no money for reading fees, stores would give us gift certificates, so at least we could give a gift to the writers to show appreciation. Some of the bars during the years would buy a block of tickets so that we could give free tickets to some of the coming out groups or the men's and women's discussion groups at Pink Triangle Services, just to encourage them to come to the event.
And what about publishers? Were publishers also partners in some ways?
Yeah. I mean, we would contact the publishers in terms of when we wanted to reach out to their author, and they would help publicize a bit. I don't really remember getting, a lot of support from the publishers, but I think it increased as the event gained prominence. Their assistance was greater later on. I was involved in the first few years.
So as Wilde About Sappho became more popular, it grew, reaching close to 400 people in the early 2000s, exceeding all previous events. 400 people for a literary event, that's quite significant. It kind of confirmed its status as, one of the largest of its kind in Canada. At the same time, the series expanded to other cities, Montreal, Ottawa, Vancouver, Guelph, and Toronto. Were you involved at all in these tours?
No, I was not. That was after my time. After I stopped being involved in the organizing, I helped at the event, once I went and got the author from the airport or helped in the green room or something, but I wasn't involved in the tours.
So Wilde About Sappho featured established Canadian writers as well as emerging ones. At times international writers, as you mentioned, were flown in on stage. I have a list of some of the guest readers over the year, and it's a bit of a who's who of Can Lit. We have Emma Donahue, Ivan Coyote, Camilla Gibb, Shani Mutu, Wayson Choi, Shyam Silvadurai, the late R.M. Vaughan, Helen Humphreys, Dion Brand, as well as some international people, as you mentioned, Felice Picano, Sarah Schulman, Leslie Feinberg. I'm kind of curious, do you have any particular memories of readings or moments that stand out in your memory about either some of the writers who took to the stage?
Well, we were fortunate, that every year we had great writers, and it really was wonderful to meet them. We would have supper with them beforehand, which was nice to get to know them a little bit on a personal note, a personal way. I guess for me personally, sometimes there's favorite writers that it was pretty cool to meet. For me, it was cool to meet Sarah Schulman, someone whose books, both fiction and nonfiction, I really, really liked. And also Jim Grimsley. Jim Grimsley came after I wasn't involved in bringing him, but he was an author who I had discovered when I was working as a librarian, as a selector, and I really liked his work. So it was a treat to meet him and hear him.
How did it feel to be part of an event so focused on queer literature at a national level in Canada?
It was great. I mean, it felt good that these great writers were being featured at the National Library, were getting more exposure, and that, the gay community, the LGBT community was having this large event at the National Library. That was great. Or, in other cities as well as the tour began.
Now, I know that there was also a Lambda Foundation Community Interfaith Celebration of Diversity, and it linked members of the Islamic and Jewish communities, as well as Christians and others. Was part of its goal to promote acceptance of diversity?
That specific event? or generally
I
Lambda
think, well, I
Foundation?
mean, just generally, I would say, like, I guess, was part of its goal to build bridges, I guess you would say, kind of with the LGBT community and then maybe the more mainstream.
Yeah, well, certainly the Lambda Foundation wanted to build bridges between the gay community, the LGBT community, and the society in general. And we wanted to demonstrate that the entire community or the different parts of the community, because we knew we weren't all the same. And so that's why I think when we were choosing the authors, we kind of made sure that we were trying to read broadly and look broadly in terms of getting authors to invite. I mean, luckily there was a lot of great authors, and so I don't think that
So you meant,
so in the foundation's
no, go ahead.
mandate, I don't think they used the word diversity, but we certainly, in our minds, wanted to show the whole community.
So you mentioned Gary Seeley was the person who got you involved. Gary seemed to be the one who got most people involved. I'm kind of curious, like, what are your memories of Gary Seeley? What kind of man was he? What kind of experiences did you have, interactions you have with him?
Well, one of the benefits of being involved with the Lambda Foundation was that I developed a friendship with Gary. We became good friends. He was a man who really believed in community, in bringing people together, whether it was for a Christmas Eve supper or whether it was Wilde About Sappho. He liked to bring people together, and he did that as far as continually, as far as I can see from since I met him. And he was always happy to help and to. I remember once there was an organization he felt he was supportive of. He didn't have much time, so he went and told them, "I have 2 Saturday afternoons. Is there anything I can do to help you over 2 Saturday afternoons? That's what I can commit to." And so I was impressed by that he was willing to, he was involved in many, many things, but he was willing to, set aside a bit of time for this organization. I can't remember what it was.
He was a fun guy.
It was fun. He liked to do things. He loved to canoe. He loved nature, and he just loved to discover things and explore things. Whether it was driving down a country road to see what you could see, or going to a movie, or reading a book.
So your involvement with Lambda has really been centered around Wild About Sappho, which existed for about 16 years. The last one was in 2007. Were you at the last one?
Yep, I was at them all.
You were at them all. Okay. um, there is talk about bringing it back, this November. I'm kind of curious to know, like, after so many years, what do you think Wild About Sappho should look like to represent, I guess, the queer literary community in 2025?
Well, I think there's been a lot more publishing by LGBTQ writers, and so there's a huge number of writers they can choose from. But I think it's great to just look at writers who have been writing for a long time now, to reconnect with them if people have not been reading their work, and also to discover new people who have maybe just started, and really showing the great diversity in our community.
So, I mean, in terms of like your experience, like, are there lessons from your time that you think current queer literary initiatives can learn from?
I would say from my experience with Wild About Sappho, it was really kind of the outreach to people who may not normally go to a literary event. It was great to see people's reaction. Often they came every year and they looked forward to it, and it was not something they traditionally did. And so I think that it was great. Right now, we're so in tuned with doing things by Zoom or seeing things via the internet, and I think that personal connection of having a shared experience listening to someone is a great experience. That's, I think, what some people liked about Wild About Sappho. They really saw reading as a solo event at home, but here they're together listening and appreciating the people that they're hearing. There's usually 3 or 4 writers each year. So if one wasn't really your cup of tea, well, no problem. In 20 minutes, you'll be listening to someone new. And it was a way just to discover new writers.
Well, Philip, I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with me today and for sharing your memories. We hope that these stories inspire and deepen your understanding of Lambda Scholarship Foundation's legacy and enduring impact. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't miss the other interviews that we posted as part of Lambda's 40th anniversary project. There are plenty more inspiring voices and stories to discover. Thank you very much, Philip.
Thanks. Bye.